When we say taking on the dragon, it's not just countries like India and the US. There are much smaller countries and entities that are now standing up to China. Never underestimate the underdog, we say. The saying has stood the test of time. The United States underestimated Vietnam at one point. It fought a war for 19 years. Ultimately, the Americans had to accept defeat and pull back troops. Winston Churchill once called Mahatma Gandhi a half-naked fakir, but the British Raj crumbled before the Mahatma. They had to leave India. A similar David versus Goliath battle is what I'm talking about. It's playing out today. A small island is standing up to the mighty China, setting an example for the world to follow. We're talking about Malaita. It is the largest province in the Solomon Islands. It wants independence now. It has announced a referendum for independence, and the trigger is China. Malaita does not want a relationship with China. Let me first tell you more about this island. It has a population of 2 lakh people. It is the second largest island in terms of area in the Solomon Islands. This is a very important story. The people of this island are called Malaitans. After Solomon independence in 1978, many Malaitans rose to positions of prominence in the country. They hold many top positions in government and business. This is despite them being a minority, and this has even led to tension and violent clashes a few decades back. In the early 20th century, in fact, from 1998 to the year 2003, Solomon Islands witnessed civil unrest. There was even a coup in the year 2000. All of this was triggered by cultural, ethnic and political divisions. Now, all these differences have surfaced again and pose a bigger challenge. And this is where China comes in. Last year, the national government of the Solomon Islands took a major decision. They ended a 36-year-long alliance with Taiwan. They moved to the Chinese camp. But the province of Malaita protested because it has close ties with Taiwan. Now, as a bigger battle for power and influence plays out on the global stage, Malaita wants to seize the moment. Its leader has announced an independence referendum. Malaita has always wanted to be free of the Solomon Islands, and they believe now is the time to do it. They already seem to have the United States on their side. Reports say Malaita is in talks with the US to develop a deep-sea port. This is to counter China, which is pursuing developmental projects in the capital of the Solomon Islands. And there's more to the story. 2 recent developments. Number 1, Taiwan sent medical aid to Malaita, but it never reached them because it was seized by the capital, backed by the Chinese. And number 2, China has started sending chartered flights to this island. Now, here's something you must know. The Solomon Islands is among the very few countries in the world which remains untouched by the Wuhan virus. But the national government has now allowed chartered flights from China. They say it is for the repatriation of its citizens and for Chinese developmental partners. The government wants to kickstart infrastructure projects despite the risk of the Wuhan virus. On Wednesday, one such chartered flight landed in the Solomon Islands. It brought back stranded citizens and a special guest, a new Chinese ambassador. He flew in with Chinese officials and workers who will build a sports facility in the Solomon Islands. China has been quick to mark its territory here. It has already opened an embassy. The people of Malaita are raising questions. They're afraid opening up air routes to China at this point could bring in the Wuhan virus. And they're asking one question: why should building a sports facility be a priority during a global pandemic? The Malaitans are very angry, and they've asked all Chinese tour operators to leave the island. And with this one move, they've made their fight with China public. The call for independence in Malaita will get worldwide attention because the Solomon Islands is a strategically important Pacific nation. It has several deep water ports. China wants to control them to challenge the United States in the Pacific. And this independence referendum disturbs China's diplomatic calculations, its plans. The Solomon Islands is now set to become the latest battleground in the US-China geopolitical fight. And the outcome of this fight could very well decide the fate of Malaita.